Welcome to nutrition class and this week's burning question. Are carbs bad? Bum, bum, bum. All right, so these past couple of weeks, I've gotten questions on carbs. What are carbs? What's the difference between net carbs and total carbohydrate on labels? Is a low carb diet really the fastest way to lose weight? Are refined carbs and sugar bad? These are some fantastic questions, so let's get into it. Let's start off with what are carbs? So the term carbs is short for carbohydrate. People often use the term carbs to refer to refined carbs or processed carbs or sugary carbs, like carbs are bad. You'll hear that a lot. And some people will use it as a way to differentiate between complex carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates. But really, the word carbs has no meaning. It's short for carbohydrates. How a person uses it can vary greatly. But carbohydrates, I do know what those are. Carbohydrates are a macronutrient found in many foods, including all vegetables, fruits, grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. Carbohydrates provide 4 calories of energy per gram. You will recall from our calories workshop, our calories class, that calorie is just a unit of energy, and carbohydrates provide 4 units of energy per gram, 4 calories per gram. That is the same as protein. Protein also provides 4 per gram, and fat provides 9 per gram, 9 calories of energy per gram. There are no essential carbohydrates. There are no essential carbohydrates. So if you watch the protein class, you will know that there are some 21 amino acids in proteins, and 9 of them are essential amino acids, meaning your body cannot produce them on its own. You must get them from food sources. There are also essential fats, but there are no essential carbohydrates, meaning that technically, you can live without carbs. You can live without those carbohydrates. But should you is another question, and we'll get into that. But there are no essential carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are called the preferred energy source of the brain because your brain will run on carbohydrates first, as long as there are carbohydrates available. If there are no carbohydrates available for a prolonged period of time, then it will switch to a different energy source. Your body will burn fat and other things and create ketosis and feed the brain with that. But anytime there are carbohydrates available, the brain will go to those first. The brain loves running on carbs. That's part of the reason why we crave them so much when we're doing a lot of brain work. Also part of the reason why you get that weird brain fog if you've ever tried going on a lower carb diet. If you go on a lower carb diet and it's really low, you might get this weird brain fog for a little while. And then if you go all the way into ketosis, and once you're kicked into ketosis, then your brain has an alternative fuel source to run against. But then if you go and have like even one little bit of carbohydrate, your brain will get back on that carbohydrate vibe. Your body gets kicked out of ketosis, and it can be a miserable back and forth. So carbohydrates are interesting. Yes, there are no essential carbohydrates, but that is the preferred energy source of the brain. Carbohydrates can also be muscle sparing, which means that like if your body needs to use the protein for protein things like hormones and building the muscles and stuff, and you have carbohydrates in your system, it'll use that for the energy and other things. So in any case, carbohydrates. Ooh, this question. I love this question. Okay, what is the difference? What is the difference between net carbs and total carbohydrate? The short answer is that net carbs is a metric that was invented to market convenience foods to low carb dieters. It's kind of an invented thing, but it does have some truthiness to it. It has some science-ish basis in some ways that are worth talking about and filtering through it. So obviously my opinion of net carbs is pretty negative, and that you should only go by total carbohydrate, how many actual grams of carbohydrate is in the food. But let's break it down a little bit, right? Let's give this question its due diligence. So here we have a picture of a package of Atkins bars. So Atkins bars right on the front, big, bold, 4 grams net carbs, 1 gram sugar, 7 grams fiber, 16 protein. Okay, cool. That looks pretty good. And Atkins is a brand that's known for its low carb diet, right? So you figure if you're getting an Atkins bar, 4 grams of net carbs, that's a low carb bar is what you're thinking, right? And then we flip it over to the backside, and we're going to take a look at the nutrition label. We're going to break down a couple of things here. So first off, total carbohydrate, 17 grams. That's more than, there's more carbohydrate in this dang thing than there is protein. Total carbohydrate, 17 grams, okay? So that's, that has some fiber in it, 7 grams. It has some sugar, 1 gram. Includes 0 added sugars. And glycerol, 6 grams. Huh, we'll talk about that in a second here. So overall, it's a candy bar, guys. You know, I mean, really. But here's the thing. So they're able to claim on the front 4 grams of carbs. And then this, again, on the back label is nice and big. It says 4 grams Atkins net carbs. Okay, so what does that mean? Total carbohydrates are 17. Okay, good. Yeah, that's true. Minus fiber, 7 grams. Okay. And then minus glycerin, 6 grams. Huh, okay. So we're going to take the carbohydrate. We're going to then not count the amount of carbohydrate that has fiber. We're going to count that against it. And glycerin, what is glycerin? Okay, so this is interesting. So glycerin, sometimes spelled glycerine or glycerol, is a sweet, syrupy liquid. It is chemically categorized as a polyol with 4.32 kilocal per gram. So 4 calories per gram, essentially, okay? So this stuff right here has calories in it, okay? So if it has 4 calories per gram and there's 6 grams of it, how many calories is that? So 4 times, I don't know why I can't math in my head, 6 times 4 equals 24. So that's 24 calories. But we're not gonna count that. Because why? I don't understand why. If the label has a statement regarding sugars, the FDA requires that glycerin content per serving be declared as a sugar alcohol. So you see, they are able to say right on the front, only 1 gram of sugar, but then they have 6 grams of this sweet syrupy stuff that's who knows what. Sure, it's safe to eat. I'm not one of the nutritionists that has like an issue with air quotes chemicals in my food because spoiler alert, guys, everything is a chemical. But it is worth noting that they're playing some shenanigans up in here with this. Further shenanigans, just as an FYI, that when you're looking at the back of the label. So first you want to look at total carbohydrate, protein, fat. Those are your 3 basic macronutrients up in there. Now they have 200 calories on here, and I haven't done the math on this yet, but I'm going to suspect that that 200 calories is not totally accurate. So let's see. Total carbohydrate is 17. Total protein is 16. That's 33. Okay, 33 times 4 calories per gram. So that's 132 grams from that. 132 plus, let's see, we got 9 times 11 is 99. 132 plus 99 equals 231 calories, Atkins bars, not 200, 231. 231 calories by your own admission of how much fat, carbohydrate, and protein is in there. So I don't know if they're like not counting, let's see, does it add up if we're only doing, no, it doesn't add up if we're only doing the net grams. Ugh. Let's see, so yeah, labels, they don't make any sense, guys. They're bonkers. So labels, they're allowed to like round down on things. So the total carbohydrate is 17. It might actually be like 17.9. Same thing with the protein, so on. They get to do weird rounding stuff. And now on top of all of that, they have net carbs, which are a lie. But why do they get away with this net carbs thing? And what's the big idea? What do they say is the reason behind net carbs? And it comes from this concept right here. Should fiber calories count? Okay, so that's really what most companies and proponents of this idea talk about when they talk about net carbs. Should fiber calories count? Because fiber has carbohydrates, right? So should it count? Maybe, maybe not. Calories are a unit of energy, like we talked about. 1 gram of carbohydrates provides 4 calories, cool. But this does not account for the differences in how food digests or the actual calories used by the body. Whole foods and high fiber foods may not release as much energy for the body to use. Dietary fibers might provide 4 calories per gram like any other carbohydrate, or they might provide less since your body's digestive enzymes can't break down all fibers. Now, it's worth noting that for this net carbs dealio, they don't differentiate between soluble and insoluble fibers. So good thing to note as we're talking about this here. Okay, so the truth is we don't have all the answers yet, but that won't stop companies from using what we think we might know to sell you stuff. Fibers differ in how well they digest. So there are soluble fibers and insoluble fibers. Soluble fiber they absorb water and become gels and dissolve in that water. So soluble fibers, they reach the intestines and then the bacteria digest them. And this process will create short chain fatty acids that provide your body with energy. So you do get calories from it. It's just in a bit of a longer process, a little bit more roundabout way, and requires bacteria. The FDA does estimate that fibers fermented by bacteria provide only about 2 calories per gram of fiber, and insoluble fibers travel to the intestine with very little change. In one end, out the other. Insoluble fibers will increase the bulk and shorten transit time through the gastrointestinal tract, but because these fibers are not digested at all, the FDA estimates that insoluble fibers do not contribute calories. Okay, so that is the idea with that net carbs. I still don't understand the whole glycerin thing and how they get away with deducting that, but maybe because it's not actual food, I don't know. But in any case, this is why nutrition plans featuring whole foods and high fiber tend to be more effective for body fat loss because calories are naturally more restricted than the equivalent caloric intake of processed foods. So this is something that has been shown, but also has been debunked and been shown again, like, okay, is a calorie a calorie? If I have 100 calories of Twinkie or 100 calories of apple, is the difference that significant? And what they have shown is that any calorie restricted diet will have fat loss effect, provided that your metabolism is normal. And what they will see with people who have tried like the all Twinkie kind of a diet is that, yeah, they also lose weight. But in general, people are going to lose more weight if they're going to be getting those high fiber sources. And maybe that is because the calories are more restricted. But that said, does that mean we should adjust our carbohydrate calories using the net carb formula? I don't think so. I'm going to give that one a hard no. It is way easier, way more beneficial to count total carbohydrate, total calories, and not try to split hairs between which ones are actually being counted because of the amount of fiber in there. It's a marketing tool, guys. It's so that they can say, oh, our bars are low carb when they actually have more carbohydrate than anything else. Again, like Atkins bars, you think it's going to be low carb, you look at the back, 17 grams of total carbohydrate. And then if you do add, I would add a glycerin in as the carbohydrate. If that glycerin has 4 calories per gram and it's sweet and sugary, guess what? It should count as a freaking carb. So it should be 20, what is it? Again, can't do math and talk at the same time. 17 plus 6. It should be 23 grams of carbohydrate, in my opinion. Shame on you, Atkins bars. Misleading. Okay, so that's the deal with net carbs. They're not counting the fiber, or they're counting the fiber against the total carbohydrates. Which brings us to our next question. Is a low-carb diet really the fastest way to lose weight? And the short answer is that any diet that reduces total calories is going to help you lose weight. In general, and again, depending on if you have a normal metabolism. And there are exceptions to this rule. We get into that in more depth in the episode we did on calories. So if you're like, man, calorie restriction isn't working for me, or my metabolism's super low, go stop this video right now, go watch the other one, or finish watching this one, but also go watch the one on calories, because we do talk about the exceptions to the rule of caloric restriction equals fat loss. But in general, caloric restriction equals fat loss. That is absolutely true in 99.99% of the cases. So any diet that reduces total calories will help you lose weight. And some people feel more satisfied on fewer calories with a low carbohydrate diet. And some people do not, okay? I'm a big fan of self-experimentation. You should try a low-carb diet if you've been curious about it. See if it helps satiate your appetite, but you still have to pay attention to the number of calories you're getting, especially if you're gonna do something that's a very high-fat diet, because fat really packs it in at 9 calories per gram. That's more than double your protein or your carbohydrates. So it's really important that as you're testing these things out in yourself, the idea is, can I feel more satisfied and more energetic on fewer calories? That's really the question. So for some people, yes, it works very well. It makes them feel satiated, and they are very vocal about it when it works well for them. And they say, low carb life forever. And they say, look at all this weight I lose, and all that good stuff. And then it seems like it's the thing to do, but it is the thing to do for some people, but not everybody, right? Okay. So here's the thing with carbohydrates. You don't need carbohydrates to live. There are like tribes in, cold places with no plant matter to speak of that live all off of fat and protein, and they live normal lives that way. But getting enough fiber for most people, really crucial for your gut bacteria, for the ecosystem of your intestines to be working properly. So getting enough fiber for healthy digestion from a strict keto diet is nearly impossible. We are going to talk about keto specifically a little bit here, because there's low carb diets and then there's keto. And sometimes the word keto is thrown around to describe just any low carb diet, just because people don't know the difference between keto and low carb. But we'll talk a little bit specifically about keto. Getting enough fiber on a keto diet is like impossible. It's really hard. So we'll use broccoli as the example. It's one of the highest fiber, lowest carb vegetables I could think of was broccoli, right? So broccoli, if you wanted to get the minimum amount of carbohydrates per day, so 25 grams, like 25 to 40 grams for adults is considered a good range of fiber to get per day. So to get the minimum recommended amount of fiber per day, 25 grams, and let's say you wanted to get it all from broccoli because it's a super low carb, low calorie kind of a thing, you would need to consume 57 grams of carbohydrate to get that 25 grams of fiber. 57, okay? That's 17 more than the upper end of keto, okay? Keto is going to tell you that you're going to get like between 5 and 10% of your total calories from carbohydrate. All right, between 5 and 10%. The whole goal here being to get you into ketosis. If your carbohydrates are not low enough, you will not get into ketosis. You will not start burning fat as an alternative fuel source, thereby fueling your brain with those ketones rather than by the carbohydrate. And you don't want to be in that weird limbo in between, because then you just have brain fog, which sucks. So the ketogenic diet typically reduces total carbohydrate intake to between 20 and 40 grams total per day, and that includes any trace amounts that are in your other foods, okay? Popular ketogenic diet resources suggest an average of 78 to 80% fat, total calories from fat, 5 to 10 from carbohydrate, and 10 to 20 from protein. So it's a very high fat, low carb, low protein diet. And if you watched my video on protein, the importance of protein, in my opinion, on that. So keto's got some problems. So ketogenic diet was originally developed as a medically prescribed diet to help children with seizures. And it does, in a lot of cases, help with that. It's great. How the hell it became a fat loss trend, I honestly don't know, other than what we talked about here, which was that for some people, it may just make them feel more satiated to have all that fat in their diet, and they just don't get as hungry, and they're able to eat very, very little. and feel full. So I guess it works for some people because of that, but you absolutely can, and people do get fatter, gain weight on a ketogenic diet. And one of the main selling points of the ketogenic diet, I think it's worth mentioning, this difference right here: dietary fat, the fat that you eat, like butter, oil, that kind of stuff, and body fat, the fat that is stored on your body, the stuff that people are generally trying to get rid of when they go on a ketogenic diet, are not the same thing. And the reason why I mentioned they're not the same thing, and it's important to keep this in mind, because one of the claims that people use to promote the ketogenic diet as a weight loss solution is the fact that your body will become more efficient at burning fat as fuel. They say your body is going to burn fat as fuel. And you say, oh, that sounds great. I need to burn fat. And you're thinking of body fat. I need to burn fat as fuel. But, and that's true, but it's only going to burn body fat once there aren't enough calories. So as long as there are enough fat calories from your dietary fat, the fat that you're eating, which keep in mind is 75% of your calories on this diet, as long as you're getting enough dietary fat, your body's not going to tap into your fat stores in your body. So yes, you do become more efficient at burning fat. You absolutely do become more efficient at burning fat as fuel on the ketogenic diet. But unless there's a caloric deficit, you're still just burning your dietary intake, not your stored body fat. So you still need to create a caloric deficit in order for the diet to work for fat loss. So that's super important to understand. I think a lot of people get into the ketogenic diet thinking that like they're going to become a body fat burning machine once they're in ketosis, and then they're very, very disappointed when they are not, when they get into ketosis, and they'll even pee on the little strips and everything to see if, you know, the urine test to see if they're in ketosis. They're like, hey, I'm in a ketosis, but nothing's happening. I'm not losing any fat. It's like, because you're still eating too many calories. Yeah, so that's the keto diet. So what was the question we were answering with all that? Is a low carb diet really the fastest way to lose weight? No, probably not. Depends. Depends on who you are, if you love eating butter or not. Okay, let's talk about refined carbs. Are refined carbs and sugar bad? Oh, that looks so good, doesn't it? Are they bad though? Are they bad for us? Without any fiber to slow the digestion process down, refined carbohydrates and sugars enter the bloodstream fast. Really fast. Whether or not this is a bad thing depends on your activity level. If I am doing nothing but sitting on my butt and I eat this lovely cake and cupcakes here, that's going to flood my bloodstream with sugars relatively quickly. My insulin goes into action to put that where it needs to be for usable energy. My insulin can help that go to one of three places. My muscle tissues, okay, my muscles aren't using, probably not much storage there. My liver, probably also full, limited storage capacity there. My fat cells, hey, almost unlimited storage capacity there. So yeah, if I'm just sitting around, the excess carbohydrates will be converted into fat. This goes for any mammal, by the way. All mammals who are eating excessive amounts of carbohydrate, that will be converted to fat. But let's say I'm super active. Marathon runners, for example, sometimes take in refined carbs before or during their run to prevent hitting the wall, or bonking, they sometimes call it. And essentially that's when you run out of energy, or you have no more energy stores, no more glucose, and your body just kind of seizes up like, right? That's why runners will have like carb loading and bananas and goo packs. Goo packs is just like, goo is just a brand name of a little sugar syrup thing that they can just take while they're running. And that will give them the energy that they need. So as long as the body is moving, those calories can be actually useful. If you're doing high intensity activity, that could be really useful to have some fast absorbing carbs, but you also don't have the fiber in there, so you don't get your recommended daily amount of fiber. It doesn't really have any benefit there. So they're not bad, but they're not good for you most of the time. We'll put it that way. They're not going to be beneficial most of the time. So not bad, but also not beneficial most of the time. So there are complex carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates. Your complex carbohydrates are all going to have a lot of fiber, and they're generally going to have some micronutrients as well. Micronutrients would be your vitamins and minerals. And they're also going to often have macronutrients besides just the carbohydrate. They're going to maybe have some protein in there, like your grains, nuts, legumes. They're going to have maybe some other fats in there, like your nuts. So there's going to your avocado. So their complex carbohydrates have other nutrient value besides just the carbohydrate. Now, refined carbohydrates, things like candies, white bread, sugars, that kind of stuff, sodas, those are all pretty straightforward, just carbohydrates. But also a lot of refined carbohydrates, they do a lot of manufacturers and recipes pack a lot of fat in there as well. So it makes them super ghrelin stimulating, super hunger stimulating, right? So in other words, you could eat like a whole pile of French fries, but like a raw potato, maybe not so much, you know? So anything that's super processed is going to be not only easier to eat a lot of and overeat, but you better be doing some serious high energy work to actually make use of those calories. Otherwise, your body's just going to put them right into storage, because what else are you going to do with them, right? The slower burning carbohydrates, those your body is going to more likely make use out of as those carbohydrate calories become available, as they're broken down in your system, in your gut, by your gut bacteria, and ultimately become available as you need them. So if you're doing slow activity, go complex. If you're doing fast activity, get some refined carbs. So they both have their place, in my opinion. Carbohydrates are a great source of energy. Once you have met your dietary needs for essential amino acids from protein and essential fatty acids from fats, there is no reason you can't get the rest of your calories from carbohydrates. Most of my meal plans have 30% from carbohydrates. I typically do a pretty close to 30-30-30 split, 30% of calories from protein, 30% from fat, and 30% from carbohydrate. So yeah, and that's not 30% of volume, 30% of calories, remember. So fat has 9 calories per gram and carbohydrate has 4. So volume wise, you would have less than half the amount of fat for most of my meal plans. It's much lower fat, definitely not a keto kind of a plan for the most part. So that seems to work really well for most people. So once you have your essential fatty acids, your essential amino acids from protein, then yeah, top off the rest of your caloric needs with carbohydrates. Why not? Get that fiber, y'all. Eat enough complex carbohydrates to get your fiber and turn to simple carbs when you need fast energy for hard work or hard play. How much carbohydrate you add to your diet should depend on personal preference and lifestyle too. So there are people who are like, hashtag keto life forever. I never want to eat a carb again. Carbs are gross. I'm going to eat nothing but butter and bacon and chicken breast, and that's what I like to eat, and I'm totally cool with that. If that's you, hey man, go for it. But if you're going to want to like participate in a pizza night or a family meal or home baked bread or whatever it is, if you're going to want to have some carbohydrates once in a while, keto's probably not the way to go for you, because it's very unforgiving to be bumped in and out of ketosis. You'll get that brain fog, you'll feel lousy on the in-between. So it's much better, if you're not going to do like a die-hard keto for life kind of situation, to find a balanced meal plan with carbohydrates included. Food should meet your dietary needs, your goals, and be enjoyable. You can do all three. You can meet your dietary needs, your fat loss goals, and have fun while you're doing it too. So yeah, I hope you found that fun and interesting. I think carbs are great. I think that self-experimentation is great. I think that learning how to read a label is great, all that good stuff. But are carbs bad? Nah, they're good. Carbs are good, y'all. All right, so I hope you all go and enjoy some complex carbs, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.